it 95% of it.
Fox's Alexandria Hoff is at the White House.
Axios reporting the deal would provide sanctions relief linked to compliance and would keep the Strait of Hormuz open and toll-free. But Iranian state media is now reporting that any terms involving the Strait will be resolved as a regional matter jointly decided between Tehran and Oman. President Trump has consistently said Oman will not be involved in this. So clearly there is still some sorting out in these final terms. Through all of this, though, the military reality remains. The U.S. forces shut down 2 Iranian attack drones that U.S. officials say were trying to attack vessels, commercial vessels in the Strait of Hormuz.
There's a lot of tornado damage in parts of Indiana and Illinois, where this man was hurt in Streator. Police rescued him from the rubble of his home that came down on top of his family.
Oh, my God. Are you okay?
I think I got a broken leg.
You got a broken leg?
I think so.
Oh, my God.
I got her out.
Okay.
But I can't get out.
A man was killed in Iowa when a tree fell on him during a storm there, and in addition to all the tornado damage, there are about 350,000 power outages in Illinois and Indiana. Back to that Iran deal. Amid all the talk, the stock market is mixed so far today, up for the Dow, a little down for the NASDAQ, and one stock that may take off is SpaceX, still awaiting the first trades this morning in the biggest initial public offering ever that could make CEO Elon Musk the first trillionaire and some of his employees at SpaceX millionaires. America's listening to Fox News.
If you want unlimited talk, text, and data on a crazy fast network, Big Wireless will sell it to you right now for as little as $70 a month. Or you can buy it from Pure Talk for half of that. I'm talking about unlimited talk, text, and unlimited data for just $34.99 a month. Stop paying the big guys twice what you need to. Dial pound 250, say my name. That's pound 250 micro to switch to Pure Talk, where the savings are truly unlimited.
Here it comes. Surprise! The people above your catering business are doing major construction, and the drilling is only during business hours. So loud.
Doesn't know small business owners usually don't like surprises because they cost you money. But a good surprise that could save you money, getting personalized discounts on a commercial auto quote with Progressive.
Also, that isn't powdered sugar on the floor. It's plaster from your ceiling.
Surprise yourself. See if you can save in as little as 8 minutes at ProgressiveCommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Discounts not available in all states or situations.
Station Delaware and Maryland turns to for local news. Here is another Delmarva News Update here on 92.7 WGMD, WGMD.com, and the WGMD app.
Governor Matt Meyer and the Delaware State Housing Authority have announced an agreement in principle with Delaware State University to purchase the Living and Learning Commons in Dover as a site to expand the Hope Center model in Kent County. Governor Meyer creating the Delaware Interagency Collaborative to End Homelessness last spring, and since then, the group of state agency leaders and homeless service providers identified significant gaps in shelter capacity and access to services, especially in Kent and Sussex counties. According to state officials, opening a center in Dover would close those regional gaps, strengthen crisis response, and improve the pathway to permanent housing. Under the agreement, DSHA would purchase the property for about $11.2 million, pending the final deal. DSHA will own and operate the center, purchasing the nearly 6-acre property with existing money. DSHA will not use state allocations for the acquisition. In a press conference held at the Government Office Building Thursday, Wicomico County Executive Julie Giordano addressing once again allegations involving her and the Sheriff's Office stemming from rumors of inappropriate photographs that were shared.
As the county executive of Wicomico County, I have never sent inappropriate photographs to a deputy, to a county employee, or to anyone else. I never have. I never would. Period.
Giordano calls the allegations completely false, saying they are not based in fact nor supported by any evidence, but are instead a deliberate attempt to damage her both politically and personally. She added that the letters are part of a broader, fabricated narrative tied to years-old rumors about alleged pictures that she says have never surfaced because they simply do not exist. As always, check out our website for these and other stories, talkofdelmarva.com. I'm Jared Cirillo.
When the tough gets tough, your boots need to be tougher. From the farm to the job site, Vernon Powell is the area's best selection of work boots. From trusted brands like Harriet, Carhartt, Red Wing, and Timberland Pro. Let the trained staff at Vernon Powell find you the perfect fit with big and extra wide sizes. Plus, customize your boots with a huge selection of insoles for extra comfort. Boots feel good at Vernon Powell in Salisbury and Rehoboth Beach. Locally owned and operated since 1936.
Vernon Powell's shoes, apparel and more. It's a place to explore.
Listen up, Delmarva anglers. The Talk of Delmarva Fishing Report. 7 days a week after the 6 a.m., 10 a.m., and 4 p.m. news and sports.
The Talk of Delmarva Fishing Report is brought to you by Complete Tree Care, licensed and insured. Request an estimate at CompleteTreeCareDE.com. And Chesapeake Bath and Home Solutions, employee owned, so every project is personal. Visit ChesapeakeBath.com.
It's time for the Talk of Delmarva Fishing Report with Eric Burnley.
Thursday was a beautiful summer day. Dan at Dan's Tackle said he had very little business on Thursday as the heat kept the modern anglers hiding in their air-conditioned comfort zones. Not like the days when he and I would have been out on the water catching fish and getting skin cancer. Lewis Harbor Arena said the katydid and the grizzly had sea bass and flounder on Thursday. Breakwater tackle on the fishing pier at Cape Henlopen State Park reported blues to 30 inches caught on topwater lures on Thursday morning. Spot and croaker on bloodworms with a few short flounder on minnows filled out the remainder of the day. Old Inlet told us sheepshead were caught from the inlet rocks on sand fleas and green crabs. One angler fished the ocean side of the North Jetty with a gulp and caught keeper flounder during midday. This is Eric Burnley with your Talk of Delmarva Fishing Report.
Broadcasting from the Meineke Car Care Center studio. It's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
There we go. Okay, we're set to go. Your News Talk America, Digital Interactive Friday. Your anchorman, Jake Smith. I want to say thank you for spending some time with us here this morning. I was noting on the Dial Lounge, or in the Dial Lounge, Big Cat just said he remembers people siphoning gas from cars during the gas shortage back in 1974. Well, I remember that too. And when siphoning devices, Big Cat, started to be in short supply, people would just, if they wanted to steal gas, they would punch a hole in a gas tank and they'd put a pan underneath and they would let the gas drip out from then. So if you had gas siphoned out of your tank, you were in much better shape than if somebody had punched a hole in the bottom of your gas tank. I'm not sure how many of our Dial producers and our listeners and viewers this morning remember that. If you did not hear news at the top of the hour, my friends, and I'm going to read this to you again, and we're waiting for John Glasgow to join us. The fact of the matter is, it seems like President Trump once again has been double-crossed by the Iranians. He just posted, the terms that Iran leaked out to the fake news have nothing to do with the terms that were agreed to in writing. What they said, including their weak and pathetic statement on having a deal, bears no relation to the truth. Very dishonorable people to deal with. With them, there is no such thing as dealing in good faith. Amazing. All caps, exclamation point from our commander-in-chief. Also, their totally rebuffed drone attack last night against Indian ships leaving the Strait of Hormuz is totally unacceptable. They better get their act together and fast, President Donald J. Trump. My friends, you heard, if you were listening to the first hour radio broadcast of Your News Talk America Digital Interactive Friday, you know what I said in the monologue, and that is any deal with the Iranian regime is, as far as I'm concerned, a deal with the devil. And as a matter of fact, let me just pull the copy right here. Here is my monologue from this morning, if you weren't listening. This is it right here. I'm going to read you the first paragraph. Every time I hear how close we are to ending the war with Iran via a negotiated settlement, I roll my eyes. I'm sorry, Mr. President. I know how much you want to make a deal, but this appears to me to be a deal with the devil. That's what I said, among other things, in this morning's monologue, my friends. We're still waiting for John Glasgow to join us. Let me just check with the control room. Are we still waiting for John Glasgow? I'm just waiting for a message to be typed into dial, and the message. Okay, let's see here. I just got a text from John Glasgow. Oh, okay. Looks like I'm just going to respond. This is how it happens in live radio, my friends. He's going to be on Newsmax Live in just a few minutes, so we'll see what he can give us, and if he can help in any way. Sometimes that happens when you book guests, especially Newsmax. General Holt, as you know, sometimes he has to go on at a moment's notice. Same with Judge Napolitano. It's just part of the situation when you book guests like that. That more powerful people than I are going to say, "No, you're not going on Digital Interactive Friday. You're coming on with us right now," and so you can't argue with that. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to open up the phone lines now. Are you surprised that the Iranians are pulling a fast one? My friends, I don't know anyone, including myself, that said President Trump should not have stopped his planned attacks for last night. He should have went for them. He just should have given the go-ahead and just have the Iranians at some point, if the regime still exists at that point after the attacks last night, have them crawl on their knees for all I care. What do you think? 800-518-9292. Anywhere across the fruited plain. We'll take phone calls. We normally don't take phone calls on Digital Interactive Friday, but we have an opportunity from time to time to do so. If you're calling from commie Delaware, and yes, Delaware is a communist state, very much like California, the People's Republic of New York, Rhode Island, all those states are under communist rule, my friends. Let's see here. Okay, so we are, before we do anything else, and if you want to give us a call at 800-518-9292, let me give you an update on what's coming up on the program this morning. We are going to have the Capitol Hill report, as depressing as it might be, because Capitol Hill is not a very positive place these days. But Nathan Worcester, the senior reporter and award-winning journalist for the Epoch Times, will be joining us. Nathan is based in Washington, D.C. Coming up at 10:50 Eastern Time today, we're going to welcome in Dr. Jeffrey L. Degner. He is a research fellow, American Institute for Economic Research. We're going to be talking more about the economic issues, the economy, and what we can expect if, in fact, the Iran war ends. If it doesn't, what are the pluses and minuses? Dr. Degner, who's been on with us before, he is going to provide an analysis to us. In addition, yesterday, I'm not sure that you heard, the news kind of got buried. U.S. Appeals Court is allowing President Trump's 10% global tariffs to continue as the case is being appealed. How will that affect the U.S. economy? Dr. Jeffrey Degner joins us later on in this hour to discuss. Were you aware that every 40 seconds someone in the United States suffers a stroke, and nearly 1/3 of those strokes are caused by undiagnosed or hidden vascular abnormalities in the brain? Now, there have been obviously more strokes because of the COVID vaccine. Why are we seeing all of these strokes, my friends, and what can we do to prevent some type of stroke? We're going to welcome in Dr. Jeremy Liff, MD. He's a neurologist. He is a triple board certified New York neurologist specializing in stroke and brain aneurysms. He will be joining us in the third hour of Your News Talk America, 6 minutes past 11 Eastern Time. Then we're going to welcome in an author. His name is Thom Hartmann. He is the author of the book, Who Killed the American Dream? And it is Mr. Hartmann's position that fraud emanating from the United States Supreme Court killed the American dream. He's going to tell us how and why and when that happened. That's coming up on Your News Talk America. All right, so 302-945-9292 is our number if you want to join the conversation. Bob, producer Bob, who is not Bob the engineer, producer Bob on dial says, it seems like no one can name any of those negotiating on behalf of Iran. Well, Bob, that's the problem. The IRGC, the Iranian Guard, is running. They've got the power. They're running the country. How much power they have, who knows? The political leadership, which answers directly to the Ayatollah, apparently that's who the Trump administration's been negotiating with. Now, even if they agree to a deal, both sides, the political leadership in Tehran and the Trump administration, we're going to meet in Switzerland on Sunday, we're going to sign a deal. Well, the IRGC they feel they are under they have no responsibility to follow that deal or adhere to that deal. And that's the big problem right now. So, Bob, thanks for your question. Big Cat says, Jake, any thoughts on the Spurs fans getting beat up after the last two games in New York for wearing a San Antonio Spurs jersey? It's nuts. Well, it's not only that, Big Cat. Did you see the rioting? And it was rioting right outside Madison Square Garden the other night by these thugs who were smashing taxis on the street. They were damaging trucks, making deliveries. So if the Knicks had lost, would they have rioted outside Madison Square Garden? But the Knicks won, and they were still rioting. It just tells you how bad our nation's culture has just deteriorated. I mean, we've become a country of thugs, haven't we? I mean, that's what it appears to me to be. So, it's a shame that Spurs fans got beat up. But again, if I was going into enemy territory, Madison Square Garden, I don't think I would be wearing a Spurs jersey. I remember one time I went to Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles wearing a Mets jersey and a Mets hat. I got quite a few threats that night. Sometimes people think the Dodger fans, aren't very engaged and they leave at the seventh inning to beat the traffic and all that kind of stuff. But wearing an opposing team's jersey in this day and age is just not a good idea. And people do it, and especially when tempers are high during the NBA playoffs. I just don't think that it was a good idea for those. It doesn't excuse those who beat up the two Spurs fans. But then again, not a very good idea to wear the opposing team's jersey in Madison Square Garden. We're going to take a break on Your News Talk America. Digital Interactive Friday continues with your anchorman, Jake Smith. Please stay with us.
Here's a look at your Delmarva forecast. Lots of sunshine today with a chance for storms. High temperatures reach up to 96. Westerly winds 8 to 15 miles per hour. Overcast tonight. Chance for storms 71. Mainly sunny skies tomorrow. Highs around 90. Chance for storms Sunday. Highs around 90. 82. Mainly cloudy skies Monday. I'm meteorologist Paul Trombley from the Talk of Delmarva Weather Center along the coast. Currently, it's 89 degrees.
Hey, it's Rockfish. Tune in this Saturday night at 10 p.m. and Sunday at 3 p.m. for Laugh Smartly, to laugh like me and Mrs. Rockfish do, on WGMD's 98.5, The Talk of Delmarva.
The stage in world soccer is here, and every goal changes everything. And now, FanDuel is giving you a reason to root for every single one. Introducing Every Goal Pays. Bet on a match and get bonus bets for every goal scored in that match. More goals means more bonus bets, and all you have to do is turn on your token. Are the U.S. going to go on a deep run, reach a semifinal, or even a final in a dream world? From the opening whistle to the final kick, let there be goals on FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com to get started now. 21 and over, select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino. 18 and over in D.C., Kentucky, and Wyoming. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-MY-RESET. In Connecticut, call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat. In Maryland, visit mdgamblinghelp.org. In Massachusetts, visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 1-800-327-5050. In New York, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Louisiana, call 1-877-770-7867.
Hey, Delaware, we care. This is Steve Bell from Bell House Medical in Lewis, Delaware. If you need a scooter, if you need a power chair, if you need something that's going to help you mobilize and get around the house or out of the house and you're not able to walk and you need something with a motor, easy to charge, easy to take with you, we have Pride scooters and power chairs. Come take a test drive on the scooters. Pride Mobility scooters are the best in the industry. They're dependable. Bell House Medical in Lewis, Delaware is open on Monday through Friday, 9 to 4 p.m. On Saturdays, only by appointment.
Views and opinions expressed are those of the hosts, callers, and guests, and not necessarily the staff, management, ownership, advertisers, or sponsors of WGMD.
One blood donation can help save many lives. Give blood today. Call the Blood Bank of Delmarva at 1-888-8-BLOOD-8 or visit delmarvablood.org. For information, go to the Community Outreach under the Extras tab at thetalkofdelmarva.com.
Join me, the Rehoboth Foodie, on Saturdays from 2 to 4 at WGMD 92.7.
Broadcasting from the Meineke Car Care Center studio. It's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
Your News Talk America Digital Interactive Friday continues, and we do not have John Glasgow because he has at the last minute been called to do a live hit on their show this morning, their morning show. So we're just going to have to move on. So what are your thoughts about this? And one of the questions that I had for John Glasgow was that President Trump says that Iran is willing to give up their nuclear program to achieve this potential deal. Well, do we believe them? Well, obviously not. Iran is, as you know, they were denied news of a pending deal. So are we surprised at that? I wasn't, and I'm sure you're not either. We still do not know, and this is the big problem, who and whom the Trump administration is dealing with. And we do not know who will be signing the deal if that occurs. I can tell you right now, it's not going to be the IRGC. They are not going to want to be shown on television in Switzerland shaking hands with J.D. Vance and showing that they have surrendered to the great Satan. Now, the situation right now with the deal, is President Trump going to order the resumption of bombing right now? Who knows? I mean, this is such a mess right now. And there's an old adage in baseball, if you think long, you think wrong. 800-518-9292 is our number. 800-518-9292, 302-945-9292. Go ahead, caller. What are your thoughts?
Oh, hi, Jake. It's Loretta from Berlin.
All right. Go ahead, please.
Okay. So, first of all, they keep stalling. So why are they stalling? Well, one, they're stalling. Maybe they're mobilizing something. Maybe if they can't mobilize from within Iran, maybe they're mobilizing with the other countries that are supporting Iran. So I think it's allowing them time. And I want to make one more point. So Americans have become very soft. We are a self-centered society. People don't give a shit. Oh, sorry.
Okay, that's you did a no-no there with that word, so we're just going to have to, we had to dump you there. Go ahead, Loretta.
Yeah, so they don't care about the future. They only care about today, their gas prices, this and that. But like you said, you know, we won't be a country if we're nuked. And they don't understand that because they have self-centered eyes.
Well, Loretta, let me just interject if I can. When I was growing up, and I loved spending time talking to my grandparents about what it was like during the Second World War. And they were very clear about what every American was expected to do for the war effort, whether it was agree to gasoline coupon rationing, which we had in this country during the war. There was food rationing in this country during the war. You needed to buy butter in the stores. You needed coupons for that. You needed coupons for eggs. You needed coupons for milk. Why? Because the troops who were defending freedom and liberty in Europe, they got first dibs on food and gasoline and so forth. So what would happen today if Americans were asked to sacrifice to that extent? Remember, after 9/11, we weren't asked to sacrifice anything, were we? Only our sons and daughters going off to fight in Afghanistan and going off to fight in Iraq. Do you think that we refuse to sacrifice for our nation? What do you think?
Well, I'm glad you pointed that out, because now it's going to be 25 years since 9/11, and what have we seen? We've seen an invasion of Islamists. We have Mandami as mayor of New York City, the city where the towers fell down. So we didn't do anything to protect ourselves. We are to blame. We are on a suicide,
suicide mission. Yeah.
Yeah. We need to wake up and to see what's going on, and we have to stop it soon. And we have to do it with the SAVE Act. And so in Congress, what are they talking about? The NFL.
That's right.
Epstein. Well, what matters to me is let's make sure our elections are fair. We need, I'm going to say it, we need a paper ballot. We need only citizens voting. And that's the only way I'm going to feel like we have any power. That's the only way, the only power we citizens have is through the vote, they say. Well, we have to do this now. Pass the SAVE Act.
Well, then you better talk to the United States Senate, who could care less about the SAVE Act. I shouldn't say that because it's a political football with them. Susan Collins flipped her vote on the SAVE Act. Now she supports it. You know why she supports it? Because she's running for re-election. It's not because she believes that the SAVE Act is the right thing for America. Susan Collins is flipping her vote because she needs to pick up more Republican voters, more conservatives, more MAGA voters in Maine in November. That's why she flipped her vote, Loretta.
None of them have true character. They go wishy-washy with whoever's giving them money or whoever can vote them back in. They're wishy-washy. They're not American first.
All right. We thank you very much, Loretta. Thank you so much for calling in. And you said that bad word over the air, which I hit the dump button, but you got to go to confession on this weekend. Hey, it's interesting about 9/11. Nancy and I sat down with our kids after 9/11, and we explained to them, this is based on what our grandparents had told us about the Second World War, and that they should have to expect, and we as a family will have to sacrifice. How foolish did we look? We didn't have to sacrifice anything. And really, that's what's happened to this country. Loretta says it's soft. I just think we've become a very selfish country. I don't think well about America because gasoline prices are $3.89 a gallon. The country's screwed up because it's costing me more for gasoline at the pump. Is that the way that people think today? I don't know. We'll talk about it coming up on Your News Talk America. We will be talking when we return to Nathan Worster, senior reporter, award-winning journalist for the Epoch Times. Nathan's based in Washington, D.C. Is there anything positive about Capitol Hill? If there is, Nathan will tell us in just a moment. Stay with us.
The marine forecast. forecast from the Taco Del Marva Weather Center. For today, we'll see southwest winds around 5 to 10 knots, increasing to 10 to 15 knots by afternoon, with seas around 2 to 3 feet. Tides for Rehoboth Beach. Low tide, 11:34 a.m. High tide, 6:11 p.m. Low tide, 12:38 a.m. Saturday. For Cambridge, low tide, 8:50 a.m. High tide, 1:52 p.m. Low tide, 8:09 p.m. The current water temperature is 68 degrees. I'm meteorologist Regina Kroll.
Hey guys, it's Rob Carson of the aptly named Rob Carson Show. Weekdays from noon to 3. Now on the Talk of Delmarva's 98.5.
This WGMD Fox Business Update is brought to you by Sussex Environmental Consultants. For a healthy home, call 302-947-1810.
I'm Taylor Riggs, and this is the Fox Business Report.
Stocks open mixed. Investors are looking at moderating crude oil prices, both Brent crude and West Texas Intermediate under $90 a barrel on optimism about a possible U.S.-Iran peace agreement. SpaceX trades for the first time today on the NASDAQ. The company includes the rocket and satellite company and XAI, the artificial intelligence company, all founded by Elon Musk. He rang the NASDAQ opening bell from SpaceX headquarters. Home builder Lennar is lowering expectations for the year. Those sales improved in its recent quarter. It had to offer deals to get buyers to sign. Lennar shares down 2%. And Carnival Cruise Lines is upgrading its onboard dining. The stock's up nearly 3%. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Jenny Cosolda. Invested in you.
Most investments today feel like second jobs. Real estate, you're a landlord. Stocks, you're a day trader. Crypto, you're a full-time researcher. You've got a life to live. Your investment should help you live it. That's why more Americans are choosing gold. Noble Gold has helped thousands protect their future with real physical gold. Visit NobleGoldInvestments.com to get your free wealth protection kit. That's NobleGoldInvestments.com. Past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals, including gold, involves risks. Consult with your tax attorney or financial professional before making an investment decision.
Broadcasting from the Meineke Car Care Center studio. It's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
Your News Talk America Digital Interactive Friday continues from DS2 as your anchorman sits behind the golden microphone. My friends, there's a lot going on in Capitol Hill, and a lot of it, to me, is just nothing but a bunch of garbage because of, well, what I said earlier this past week, that Congress wasting time on the NFL, moving more games to pay-per-view, wasting our time with Bill Gates and his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. It's just, well, let's put it this way. We get what we deserve with respect to our government and our legislative branch. Now, I want to welcome in our next panelist, Nathan Worster, senior reporter, award-winning journalist for the Epoch Times. Nathan is based in Washington, D.C. Nathan, do you see any positive activity on Capitol Hill at all right now?
Well, I have to say, I try not to lead with opinion in terms of my reporting, but looking at it from the perspective of, say, voters who swept President Trump into office, swept a Republican Congress and a Republican Senate into office, I can see why it would seem pretty frustrating. For example, it appears that the Save America Act and election integrity, that seems to just be dead. Nobody is seriously pursuing it in the Senate. Simultaneously, some of the other objectives, like, for example, perhaps a third reconciliation bill, we now have Senator Susan Collins and Senator Mitch McConnell saying, oh, that's dead too. So it appears as though with just a few months before midterms that could really reshape things, people are not acting as quickly or as decisively as some would like.
Another news story, Nathan, that popped up this week is that Social Security is not going to go bankrupt in 20 years, 6 years. Social Security will be bankrupt. Now, I'm a Social Security recipient, a proud one. I paid into the system for 50 years. I should be getting my money. But where was any mention in the halls of Congress about a plan to save Social Security from insolvency, right?
This is a very funny one, actually, because Speaker Mike Johnson recently said, well, next year we're really going to tackle entitlements. This is famously sort of a white whale, but yes, after the midterms, I wonder what you're going to be able to do at that point, right? No, and I have to say, speaking for myself as a younger person, I'm probably not alone in thinking, well, I also am paying into this system, but I'm not confident it's going to exist for me. I think that one of the big issues that I've at least heard reflected by younger people who voted for Trump is a frustration with the state of the economy, things like inflation that he made some promises on, things like the job market. And so there might even be a bit of cynicism about, well, there is a social safety net, but we can't necessarily count on it for ourselves. So might as well have a better economy.
Well, I mean, the job market is very, very good. Unemployment is 4.2%. Earnings have been increasing. It seems that the big beautiful bill is making a difference in the wallets of Americans. But the fact is, the perception by those who supported Trump right now is something different, right?
Yeah, I think I can just hone in here on one special issue, which is the employment of people in STEM professions. I haven't seen the very latest numbers, but you do have some striking unemployment numbers for recent graduates from computer science, computer engineering, fields like that, people who can't necessarily find work in those areas. And some of that has to do with programs like OPT. Some of that also perhaps has to do with AI and an aversion to hiring. But
right.
I would say no, anecdotally, and I suppose data is ultimately made up of anecdotes at some level. There's a perception there that I think has some reality to it. And we, certainly on inflation, certainly on gas prices, I do suspect that over the next few months, unless there's some either market correction or correction in the other direction, we're going to see that playing a big role in the way voters end up either voting or even just turning out in the first place.
What were your thoughts of the primary contests in Maine and California? They received a lot of attention in the media nationwide. A lot of money was pumped into those races. How did you see it?
Well, in Maine, I had a chance to visit just before the primary election, so I followed Graham Plattner from a campaign stop on Friday in Bar Harbor, a coastal resort town, to some other visits that he made the next day to some other coastal towns. And the thing to remember in Maine is that area of the state, the coast, is far more liberal than the interior, and so his election would ultimately hinge on voters in a state where there's not actually necessarily that much uniformity. I got the sense from speaking to people on the ground, he does have significant support in the places you would expect. On the other hand, Susan Collins has been reelected so many times, and Plattner is dogged by these allegations. He denies having done anything in terms of physical abuse. He denies having knowledge of what his tattoo meant prior to very recently, but we're seeing some different information, at least on the tattoo front, and in general, I think a perception that these character issues are going to be hard for him to surmount. Again, though, I think the people who are very committed to voting for Plattner, they are going to vote for him. It would take an awful lot, to paraphrase what someone told me, for them to ditch him.
Well, it's not over yet as far as what's come out, the information that's come out about his past. And these things, typically the opposing party likes to get things out drip, 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 drip. So there's always something negative in the news, and hoping that it will wear thin on voters. Are you of the same mindset?
Well, that seems to be what we're looking at now. It's interesting. I haven't verified this. You have on Twitter at least one woman making allegations that have now been circulated in the media about Graham potentially, cheating on his female partners and raising questions about how long he knew about that tattoo, things of that nature. And she has stressed, no, I'm not a Republican operative. I'm just like a left-wing woman in Maine. So to me, it seems as though there is some like wider and sometimes personal disaffection there. But it could also be the case that he, with the story that he's telling about remorse, about journey of self discovering and healing after the Afghanistan war.
Yeah, that's.
I know. Well,
It didn't seem like it didn't seem like the same guy. It didn't seem very genuine to me, Nathan.
Well, there's a lot about Plattner that at least you look at his oyster business, and it seems that his mother is the primary customer. You look at the harbor master position; it's something that he had, not terribly significant. But he does talk and he does act in a way that I think makes the blue collar thing resonate more than, say, when James Tallarico in Texas is eating barbecue. There's something about Plattner that comes across better at the end of the day than.
I mean, that's the Beto O'Rourke syndrome, isn't it?
Well, that's to Beto's credit, his dad was apparently a very popular El Paso judge. He was ultimately, I think, a much stronger candidate than Tallarico. I don't think Beto was saying anything on par with, the comment.
God is by or whatever. Not whatever the heck he was saying. That's true. I don't think Beto ever went that far.
No, and Beto ultimately lost in a midterm year. So I think at this point, barring something very unexpected, and I suppose the fact that it's now Paxton as opposed to Cornyn versus Tallarico, that does change things a bit. Cornyn, by the way, speaking of the Hill, has been telling just about everybody that he can how upset he is, and posting cryptic things, references to the frog and the scorpion on Twitter, all sorts of disaffection that he's venting, and that contributes to this atmosphere where you do have a lot of Republican senators right now who are actively angry with Trump. Tom Tillis, Bill Cassidy, Mitch McConnell, that's not a new thing, and Susan Collins and Murkowski, not necessarily being angry at Trump in my judgment, but just having to triangulate because of the states that they represent. That's not new, but that does make it harder for Republicans to do even some of the more basic things, let alone something like Save America, which would potentially take change to the way that the filibuster is enforced. And
you're absolutely right, Nathan. I agree with you 100%. Nathan Worster is joining the panel, senior reporter, award-winning journalist for the Epoch Times. I just got my weekend edition of the Epoch Times in the mailbox yesterday. Can't wait to dig into it on Sunday. Nathan is based in the swamp itself in Washington, D.C. What did you make of Nancy Mace getting trounced in her primary with the Trump-supported South Carolina Lieutenant Governor Pamela Yvette? What did you think of that?
Yes, and she didn't even finish second. She finished fifth. So it's going to come down to a runoff between Ellen Wilson, and Yvette. I don't see that as much of a shock. I think that Mace, over the years, has made a significant number of enemies over, for example, some of the things that she said on the House floor in a situation where she would not be subject to any litigation, regardless of the truth or falsehood of what she said. But she is one of these figures who it will be interesting for me to watch. Is she going to start a podcast? Is she going to start attempting to appear on cable news? Maybe there's a political future, but again, what we're seeing here, I think to a large extent, is this bleeding over of some of these, for better or for worse, polarizing, often very popular, sometimes not, figures bleeding over into the media space. And so, she's in the position she is. I think you can trace the series of events that led to it. That said, she has supporters on things like the work she's done for veterans and in general over the past few years. For example, serving as a surrogate for Donald Trump on the 2024 campaign trail. Mm-hmm. So, going to be very interested in seeing where she goes next with this.
Nathan, I have two questions posted for you on our Dial Interactive board. I'd like to get to them now, if I may. Our listener producer Big Cat says Democrats are more loyal than Republicans. Well, they certainly are lockstep when they're not divided on any issue ever. But they voted for A.G. Jones in Virginia, and Republicans completely bailed on Robinson, who had issues in the last North Carolina governor's race. What do you think the problem is with respect to Republicans staying united?
Well, I think on the one hand, yes, I think there's more media discipline in a sense from Democrats than Republicans. They're less likely to really dig into each other. Although we did see some of that, at least incipient versions of that, just, for example, in Texas, when Jasmine Crockett and Tallarico were facing off in the primary. You're also seeing many of the more progressive, left-wing Democrats going after Chuck Schumer. There's a meaningful movement afoot to try to replace him, perhaps with Elizabeth Warren, for example. So that exists. I think also with Republicans, you have a variety of factors. Some of it, frankly, is the media ecosystem, where there's just more interest in amplifying these disagreements, these splits between Republicans.
To make them newsworthy, you mean?
Yeah, there's that. And then there's also, the herding cats phenomenon that I think goes on with one party as opposed to the other. And finally, when it comes to this sort of lockstep nature of the two parties, what the Democrats have and have had for a long time, and I'm paraphrasing something Trump observed, actually, that there are just a certain number of people associated with labor unions, associated with various interest groups, who are always going to vote for that party. That does not really exist to the same extent on the GOP side. You do have loyal voters, but on the other hand, they're not necessarily obvious, interest groups, obvious clear lobbies that have
like the teachers unions,
something like that. Yeah. Exactly. And then if you look at the Trump phenomenon, a lot of those voters who are loyal to him, they wouldn't call themselves Republicans. They're independents who might vote for President Trump, but not always for other people on the GOP ticket.
Next question, if I may, from producer Frank in Virginia. Does Jay Clayton have a clearer route to Senate confirmation as DNI? Better chance than Bill Pulte did. Pulte, obviously a Trump insider. What do you think?
Yes, he does. And I should say Clayton is someone who, during the first Trump administration, he rose to this position as U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. He was able to stay on. And yes, you have Tom Tillis, who I mentioned earlier, is very positive. You have even Democrats are endorsing him. Mark Warner, for example, although they have taken pains to say, well, I just wish that his nomination had been advanced earlier in the week so that we could have kept 702 of FISA going, because this...
Yeah, that was my next question. What about 702 and the impending expiration? Because the Democrats in the House seem to be bailing on the FISA Act, right?
Yes, I should say on the House side, in that vote yesterday, they needed a 2/3 majority to advance that. And they even had, I believe, over a dozen Republicans defecting on that over concerns about the Fourth Amendment side of things. Because Section 702, just to lay it out, does still allow warrantless surveillance of Americans, and more specifically, querying of information about Americans without a warrant. That's the big issue. And even the reformed version of this for 3 years that the House advanced does not appear to address all of those issues. What we're looking at, though, is these FISA warrants, effectively the court certifications, they're already in place for months to go. So, yes, this is a standoff. We could see, for example, an executive order from President Trump to attempt to preserve some of the authorities. But in another sense, nothing is going to immediately change, at least for some of these FISA activities.
Nathan Worster, senior reporter, award-winning journalist for the Epoch Times. Nathan, based in Washington, D.C. My friends, I strongly recommend that you subscribe to the Epoch Times. You will not be disappointed. Nathan, thank you. We appreciate you coming on this morning and providing us some very interesting information and insight into what's going on Capitol Hill. Thank you.
Thank you, Jake. I appreciate it.
All right. Have a great day. You're watching Your News Talk America Digital Interactive Friday. Back with more of our program in just a moment. Stay with us.
Here's a look at your Delmarva forecast. Mainly clear today with a chance for storms. Daytime highs approaching 96. West winds 8 to 15 miles per hour. Chance for storms tonight. Lows dip down to about 71. Overcast skies. Mainly clear tomorrow. Highs around 90. Chance of thunderstorms Sunday. Daytime highs approaching 90. 82. Mainly cloudy skies Monday. I'm meteorologist Paul Trombley from the Talk of Delmarva Weather Center, inland. Currently, it's 90 degrees.
The best mix of news, talk, and sports. 92.7 and 98.5. The Talk of Delmarva. You're listening to WGMD.
future of Worcester County starts now. Hi, I'm Lou Taylor, and I'm running for County Commissioner in District 6. We need leaders who will invest in our communities and focus on what matters most. Public safety and strong schools aren't political talking points, they're necessities. We must continue to grow our economy while protecting the beaches, farmland, and rural character that makes Worcester County such a special place to call home. I will work hard every day to address these priorities and build a stronger future for all of us.
Paid for by Friends of Lou Taylor.
Trees, trees, trees. At Complete Tree Care, that's the topic in our office all day, every day. We talk about evaluating trees, trimming trees, safely removing trees, grinding tree stumps, and leaving our clients' yards spotless. Call Complete Tree Care today and let one of our trained arborists visit your property and give you a free estimate. 302-947-2273. That's 302-947-2273. Or on the web at CompleteTreeCareDE.com.
Don't miss the Summer Living Expo at Cape Henlopen High, Saturday and Sunday, June 13th and 14th. Admission is free, and 70 exhibitors will present their home, health, and wellness products and services Saturday 9 to 3 and Sunday 10 to 2. BB will offer free healthcare screenings on Saturday. There's ample free parking at Cape High and free gifts and prizes from many of the exhibitors. For valuable information regarding home, health, and wellness products and services, don't miss the free Summer Living Expo Saturday and Sunday, June 13th and 14th at Cape High. The Atlantic Hotel opened in 1895 in the heart of historic Berlin. 17 turn-of-the-century hotel rooms are available to tour, or shop Berlin stores, have dinner, and spend the night. They also offer an intimate ballroom. The Atlantic Hotel, Restaurant, and Bar proudly supports this station.
Giving you options weekdays between noon and 3. The Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show airs on WGMD's 92.7, while the Rob Carson Show airs on WGMD's 98.5. Listen to one or both here on the Talk of Delmarva, WGMD.
Broadcasting from the Meineke Car Care Center studio. It's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
My friends, there's no question that the oil markets are feeling less pressure. The price right now, I just looked at it a moment ago, West Texas Intermediate and Brent crude. Let's see here, West Texas 86.21, Brent crude 88.96. It's under $100 a barrel. It's a far cry from the predictions of $300 a barrel. But we really don't know where we're going with this Iran deal. I don't think anyone knows. President Trump is, he's ticked off, and he has nobody to blame but himself, unfortunately. But wholesale prices rose 1.1% in May, more than expected. That's primarily because of energy prices, my friends. Well, let's welcome in our next panelist. Dr. Jeffrey L. Degner is rejoining this panel. He's been a guest with us in the past. Research Fellow, American Institute for Economic Research. Dr. Degner, thank you so much for coming on today. Obviously, the stock market has done very, very well this week, even with the up and down situation with Iran. The oil markets are feeling less pressure, but we still have inflationary pressures here at home. How do you see this situation?
Well, that's right. We do face about 4.2% inflation, according to the most recent release from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And that's really hitting people in the wallet in terms of food prices. And one area that I think it doesn't get as much attention as food prices is actually the price of apparel. That went up year over year at 4.8% in this last report. And what that indicates is a lot of pressure in our supply chains that is being created because of the rising cost of diesel. Of course, all of the clothing that gets shipped across the country, this is done by diesel fuel. And when we see a $10 increase in the price of a barrel of oil, we see about a 35-cent increase in the price of diesel. And that hits these distributors pretty hard and winds up showing up in these inflation numbers for things like apparel. And of course, food isn't far behind. So those are some of the underlying dynamics of what's happening in really putting pressure on household budgets these days.
Now, yesterday, and you bring up apparel, here's a news item which didn't get a lot of attention yesterday, but a U.S. appeals court is permitting the Trump administration's 10% global tariffs to continue during this appeals process. Is that putting more pressure on, for instance, imports of apparel and so forth?
Well, I think it will put added pressure because we already have this built-in price increase because of fuel. If you tack on some inflation, the tariff, then you're going to see additional pressure on that category as well. And so I don't think that bodes well for consumer wallets here at home and for those import businesses. The other thing that tariffs do is war, of course, is the extreme example, but really it invites retaliation from the other side. We're seeing that in terms of fire exchanged in Iran, but the same principle holds true in tariffs. We can look for American exporters to see some retaliation now and again from countries that would like to do business with us. But we'll see how that unfolds and whether the courts allow the tariffs to continue. So that, I think, is going to be an ongoing saga here that is yet to unfold.
Dr. Jeffrey L. Degner is rejoining the panel, research fellow, American Institute for Economic Research. Republicans are nervous about inflation, the pressures on American consumers right now heading into the midterms. But war is war. We know what can happen. What can you tell us? What do you see if, let's say for our argument's sake, the president is able to bring this Iran negotiated settlement across the finish line? What can we expect? And of course, we were talking earlier this morning with another guest about Cuba. It looks like the Cuban regime is going to fall as well, which is going to give American companies huge reinvestment opportunities in Cuba. Where are we going to be short and long term, do you think, right now, based on where we are?
Well, I think the long-term historic reality is that Americans tend to vote with their wallets. And oftentimes another dynamic in the midterm elections is that the opposition party is, frankly, the most motivated. And so these factors are kind of stacking up against Republicans right now. And of course, that speaks to the urgency of bringing this conflict to a swift and favorable end. Now, on the flip side, if that can be accomplished, Americans love a winner. And so that can speak to really competence on the part of the Trump administration by bringing this thing to a swift and decisive end. So that would bode well. And so the problem for the Trump administration is that, like you, I'm already getting bot calls, and my mailbox outside is filling up with political ads, and the left is hitting hard
and
the
it's
message
only
of
June.
affordability. And they're not wrong. Yeah, they're not wrong.
Right. That and unfortunately, the people are going to vote with their wallets. You mentioned that. What about the benefits of the big beautiful bill? And there were many, no taxes on tips, those kinds of things. Have those benefits essentially been wiped out, Dr. Degner, based on the increase in energy prices? Do you think?
Both energy prices and some of the costs of tariffs that have been passed on to consumers. A lot of that benefit has been absorbed by rising costs, unfortunately. So again, this is something that the electorate is taking a look at. And it's very interesting here in Michigan. Some of the most regularly run ads are by leftists talking about standing between Trump and inflation. They're here to protect you, right?
Where were those ads when Biden was driving up inflation? Where were those commercials then?
Oh, exactly right. But again, politics, it is what it is, and they're playing that card. And right now, they're playing it rather effectively. So again, that speaks to the urgency of Republican leadership urging and strategically and skillfully bringing this conflict to an end and walking back those tariffs as well. I mean, I think that is not helping the administration right now because affordability continues to be a challenge for Americans.
Well, you brought up some very good points, Dr. Degner. Thank you so much for joining us. This is going to be a very interesting next couple of weeks, not only from the war, but also how the economy is going to shake out when this is all said and done.
Absolutely.
All right, Dr. Jeffrey L. Degner, Research Fellow, American Institute for Economic Research. Dr. Degner, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Jake.
You are watching Your News Talk America Digital Interactive Friday. We've got news coming up at the top of the hour, and we're going to talk about strokes, my friends. I'm sure, like me, you know so many people. I know several just in the last year that have had strokes. And why is that happening? What should we do?
92.7 WGMD Rehoboth Beach and 98.5 WUSX Seaford, the talk of Delmarva.
There is no such thing as dealing in good faith with Iran. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. President Trump posted that on Truth Social, calling them very dishonorable people who better get their act together fast. The president wrote terms Iran leaked out have nothing to do with the terms that were agreed to. But an Iranian cleric, Ahmad Khatani, was defiant today.
This enemy does not understand the language of negotiation. It does not understand the language of a ceasefire. It understands the language of force. And thank God our armed forces have shown them the language of force and will continue to do so.
Fox Business's Max Gordon reports from Dubai.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke to President Trump about the deal and released a statement today saying, in part, as long as I am the Prime Minister of Israel, Iran will not have nuclear weapons. President Trump and I are in full agreement on this issue. President Trump says that the naval blockade of Iran will remain in place until the agreement has been signed. And a signing ceremony could come as early as Sunday in Geneva, but Iranian state media is reporting that those reports of that signing ceremony are false.
Oil prices, they've been down this morning, and on Wall Street there are gains. The Dow is up more than 500 points as we await the launch of one stock in particular. SpaceX goes public today.
It was the largest IPO that ever.
That's CEO Elon Musk at SpaceX headquarters in Texas this morning.
If people had told me this was going to happen, I was like, man, you must be smoking some really good crack. Because I think this company's going to fail.
Those SpaceX employees laughing who have stock options could become millionaires. Musk could become the first trillionaire. Trading has not yet started for the SpaceX listing on NASDAQ. Soccer's World Cup's underway. Mexico, South Korea won the first two matches yesterday. Tonight, Team USA plays the opener against Paraguay at Los Angeles Stadium. America's listening to Fox News.
If you want unlimited talk, text, and data on a crazy fast network, Big Wireless will sell it to you right now for as little as $70 a month. Or you can buy it from Pure Talk for half of that. I'm talking about unlimited talk, text, and unlimited data for just $34.99 a month. Stop paying the big guys twice what you need to. Dial pound 250, say my name. That's pound 250 micro to switch to Pure Talk, where the savings are truly unlimited.
Here it comes! Surprise! The people above your catering business are doing major construction! And the drilling is only during business hours! So loud!
Listen, no, small business owners usually don't like surprises because they cost you money. But a good surprise that could save you money? Getting personalized discounts on a commercial auto quote with Progressive.
Also, that isn't powdered sugar on the floor! It's plaster from your ceiling!
Surprise yourself. See if you can save in as little as 8 minutes at ProgressiveCommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Discounts not available in all states or situations.
Delmarva's home for local news, 92.7 and 98.5 WGMD, the talk of Delmarva.
The news is brought to you by Wings to Go Long Neck. Open every day at 11 a.m. Order on DoorDash or call 302-947-9444.
Be careful outside today. The high could hit 98 degrees in some places. There could be also a storm with high winds and heavy downpours. The weekend will be cooler, and the weather looks like it will cooperate for this weekend's Ocean City Air Show, with thousands of people expected to crowd into town. If you're going, officials strongly suggest public transportation because parking will be at a premium all weekend. Delaware State Police arrested a woman from Maryland after a deadly hit-and-run accident in Millville. Kara Gilmore of Ocean City faces charges including vehicular homicide, vehicular assault, and driving under the influence. The crash Tuesday night killed the bicyclist who was riding on Atlantic Avenue east of Whitesnake Road. Investigators say Gilmore's Subaru Forester crossed into the bike lane and hit Dwayne Pershing of Ocean View. He later died at the hospital. That investigation goes on. No surprise, but Senator Chris Coons is seeking another turn. He's already picked up the endorsement of Democratic state leaders. Coons first elected to the U.S. Senate in 2010. He's facing a primary challenge from Christopher Beardsley. Republicans will choose between Michael Katz and John Shuley. The primary in Delaware is September 15th. Talk about a lucky dog. The Delaware Division of Public Health says it was able to save a young German Shepherd who got caught into a drainage pipe in Laurel. The dog sniffed his way into the 30-foot-long pipe under Womack Road Tuesday, but couldn't turn around. It took some ingenuity, but Delaware Animal Services able to lash together more than a dozen poles and nudge the dog toward the other side, where he was safely rescued.
WGMD AccuWeather.
Sun breaking through the clouds at times, hot and humid with a thunderstorm in spots. The extreme heat could be dangerous, and the storms could bring downpours, hail, and locally damaging winds. 91 at the beach, 98 inland. A thunderstorm tonight. Otherwise, clouds will break, humid, low 70 tomorrow. Sunny, less humid. 84 at the beach, 92 inland, breezy and humid on Sunday. More on these and other stories. Visit talkofdelmarva.com. I'm Jerry Lademan in the Talk of Delmarva Newsroom.
Craving wings? Head to Wings to Go Long Neck, where flavor meets freshness. Now featuring over 30 sauces and dry rubs. Enjoy traditional or boneless wings, always cooked to order, along with fresh salads and their popular soft shell crabs. Save room for dessert with new sweet treats like blueberry lemon cake, fried cheesecake, funnel cake, and cream cheese churros. Conveniently located at 25938 Plaza Drive in Millsboro. Open daily at 11 a.m. Call 302-947-9444 or order on DoorDash. Wings to Go Long Neck. Simply great wings since 1985.
Broadcasting from the Meineke Car Care Center studio. It's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
Your News Talk America Digital Interactive Friday continues from DS2, as you can see, sitting behind the shiny golden microphone. My friends, I was just looking at some stories about what's going on with respect to the supposed Iran deal. And I'm just reading this story from the New York Post here, and here's the headline. Trump blasts Tehran after Iran leaks its own demands in the peace deal. President Trump says they better get their act together. Well, my friends, the situation right now is just, it's a joke. It's an absolute joke. President Trump expressed frustration with Iran after its foreign ministry said Tehran had not reached a final conclusion on any peace agreement. So the president then responded and called them very dishonorable people to deal with and warned they had better get their act together and fast. Mr. President, enough of this. Please finish them off. Finish the job. We had momentum. You decided to go this route. I understand. You would rather deal from a position of strength and do and negotiate a peace deal. I understand that. Hopefully, history will remember you fondly for that stance. You've settled a lot of disputes. However, this one is not going to be settled with the Iranian regime until they are all eliminated from the face of the earth. That's my feeling. So as we wait for our next panelist to log on, how do you feel? 800-518-9292 across the fruited plain. We'll take phone calls. We normally don't take phone calls on Friday. We're also hoping that John Glasgow, host of Sunday Report on Newsmax, will be able to join us for a couple of moments this morning as well. So give us a call if you want to comment on what the Iranians have been up to today, which is primarily what the Iranians are up to every day. Delay, deny, and then take shots at the nation that they're supposed to be getting ready to shake hands with. Well, it's just never going to happen with them, my friends. We know that. So that's unfortunately for President Trump. I know he wants to keep promoting the fact that we're working hard. We've got leadership in Iran that wants to do a deal. They want to do a deal. We're really close to a deal. I don't want to hear that anymore. I want to hear that the IRGC has been eliminated from the face of the earth. Then, once they are, then you have a political class in Iran, in Tehran, that can negotiate, perhaps in good faith, and start the process of rebuilding their country. Unfortunately, my friends, it's just, I think President Trump is looking weak, and I've said this before, by claiming we're getting close to a deal, but dealing with the devil, as I said in my monologue this morning. If you didn't hear it, it was broadcast during my first hour this morning, and the monologue is entitled "A Deal with the Devil." And Tehran is the devil. Let's face it. We are not going to negotiate a deal with them. Even if you sign on the dotted line, they're going to cheat every opportunity they get. Just as the Soviet Union cheated, just as North Korea has cheated, and North Vietnam cheated. It's just, unfortunately, what this regime is all about. And as Big Cat just stated in the Dial Lounge, and correctly, I add, it's hard to see who is in charge in Iran. Yes, so why did the administration think that they could get a deal done with those in Iran who are not in charge, Big Cat? You continue to say people going behind each other's backs, sort of like General Milley elevated himself by calling China behind Trump's back. Yeah, well, unfortunately, there are a number of factions in Iran, and General Holt talked about that the other day, that are at each other's throats. But guess what? The IRGC weighs the heavy hammer here, and they are not going to negotiate with us. They are not going to agree with any peace deal with the great Satan, the United States. They're just not going to do it. And for President Trump to believe that they are or that they will negotiate at some point, if they haven't done it at this point, my friends, if they haven't done it at this point, they never will. I mean, their army isn't being paid. The soldiers aren't being paid. I mean, it is a mess. And with that, let's welcome in our good friend, the host of Sunday Report on Newsmax, John Glasgow, is joining us. John, I know you're busy this morning over there, and I appreciate a couple of minutes with you.
Absolutely.
And I know since April it's been tough. You start prepping your show for Sunday on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And how many times have you had to actually flip the show because of what's been going on with Iran? I don't know if you heard what I was saying when you were coming on the broadcast, but this situation that we're in now, anyone could have predicted it. The IRGC is not going to sign on to a deal with the United States. The political class in Tehran, yes, but the IRGC is the ones that are carrying the big stick, and they're just not going to do it. And President Trump needs to take this stance that we're going to keep hitting them until they're at their knees. And right now, we're not there yet, in my estimation. What do you think, John?
Great point, Jake. Yeah, this is a typical Iran playbook. This is the IRGC kicking the can down the road. They know that politically this is not great for President Trump. They're going to try and stretch this out likely till the midterms in November. So they've got a few months here, and they're going to continue to bait President Trump. They'll try to, slow walk this whole deal. Even if they do agree to a deal, Jake, there's no indication that they're even going to keep that deal. Right. How do you hold them to the terms of the deal without having either boots on the ground or having some sort of checks and balances on this agreement? This is the typical playbook. So I think President Trump, he's got to show that he's serious. He's got to hit some of these bridges and power plants and take some of their oil. I mean, he's hit them with so much strength at this point that even with all of that, they're still not willing to make a deal. Now, the fact that they took out one of our Apache helicopters is something. The fact that they still have some arms, and this is the other part of it. When they take we have the ceasefire. What ends up happening is they're not willing to make the deal. Then they'll negotiate. They're not negotiating in good faith. That they want to have a deal. They're just behind the scenes. They're getting prepared. They're reloading. They're trying to figure out how they can get some more arms to try to continue this on because they know that they've got the midterms coming up here. They're stretching things out until they know that potentially the GOP is going to have a hard time to come midterms, and then they could potentially, if the election doesn't go the way that the Republicans want, the Democrats are going to try and hold up this war. So that's their playbook, because they're going to try and stretch this out to November. That's what I think.
John, it's plain to me in reading all of the particulars of this that the Iranians are really interested in getting the rest of what remains of the frozen Iranian assets in banks. They want that money, not to rebuild their country,
No.
They want to rebuild their terror networks. That's where their power comes from. And the fact that they have been spending more time defending Hezbollah recently tells us that they really want to reestablish their terror networks, and they need that money to do just that. What do you think about that premise, John?
100%. I mean, they've been funding terrorism all around the world, and you've got these proxy groups. The one, obviously, Hezbollah, but I mean, this is why Israel continues to hit Lebanon. They're going after. They know that that they're going to continue to fund these terrorist groups. So whether or not Israel's doing this by themselves and they're going after against President Trump's orders, they realize that Iran and the IRGC are going to continue to fund these proxy groups. I mean, they have no other means. I mean, this is what it is. I mean, they don't want peace. They don't want to build their country up. They don't want an economic future for their people. It's all about terror. This is what the IRGC.
Well, that's
is.
what keeps them in power, John. That's what's kept them in power.
The people live in fear. They execute their own civilians. Anyone that pushes back against the regime. This is what President Trump continues to tell the American people. Like, we have to do something about Iran. If we don't, then they're just going to reload and they're going to rebuild and they're going to continue to do this because this is what they live for. This is what the IRGC and this regime lives for, is death to America. And until there's a change of regime, this is what we have to deal with. And we can't let them rebuild their nuclear program, which is what they're going to do. I mean, if they continue to get money and let's say we open the strait, there's never going to be peace there unless we get them out of power. And that's the big $1 million question, is how do you change the regime? Because the civilians there, we're hoping for that uprising of the civilian population.
That hasn't happened, John. We can hope that it happens, but it hasn't happened.
It hasn't
happened. To expect it to happen is not realistic at this point.
Right. And there are Iranians there that want change. They do want a country of prosperity, and they do want to live in peace, and they don't want to be executed in the streets. But, until they're armed or there is that uprising. But how do you facilitate that? Does the U.S. get involved in that? Do we send in troops? Do we help the civilians have their uprising? Or I guess at this point, we don't want boots on the ground because it costs Americans lives. So we're at a stalemate right now. But I think that President Trump continuing to give that pressure on the regime is going to have to force their hand at some point.
Well, he's cutting him too much slack, John. It's got to
He
stop,
really
in
is.
my estimation.
I think he is.
I mean, how is Newsmax handling this? Do you have a plan for this weekend? Because if there is some sort of a signing, which Trump still insists is going to happen in Switzerland, that's going to be right in the middle of your show on Sunday. So how are you handling this?
We clearly obviously are planning for, anything to happen. Breaking news, obviously. But I guess what we do is we are watching to see whether or not there is going to be some action. I do think that likely it's going to be on a weekend. That's usually when these the fighting begins. Or
it's going to fall right in your lap, my
fall
friends.
Right in our lap, and we're going to have to, break away from our coverage. But, I think that President Trump is getting impatient right now, and it could happen any day. I mean, the fact that he said we're going to hit him tonight, and then he pulled back on that.
I thought that was a mistake, John.
I thought that was
a big mistake.
As well. I think so. It shows weakness, and I don't think that that's the perception that we want to give the IRGC, because then it shows that they're winning in this negotiation. They continue to stretch this out. They're going to continue. They're not going to sign a deal. I don't know why President Trump thinks that's going to happen. They're not. We've seen this play out for decades.
John, final question, and this is another topic which popped up on the show yesterday. I had a labor leader from Mexico on talking about the fact that the USMCA is due to expire next month. This was Trump's crowning achievement in his first term. Canada and Mexico want to extend the deal, but there's crickets from the administration. Any idea what's going on?
That's a good point. Well, he's at odds with Prime Minister Mark Carney. We know that.
Right.
and a lot of Canadians are very frustrated. I'm Canadian for all of your viewers or listeners out there, but so I have a here to like what the Canadians feel about where we're at, and they're frustrated. They want a deal, they want a trade deal because their economy right now is suffering. There's people, they have a legal immigration problem there. Justin Trudeau under his reign as prime minister, he welcomed in anybody and everyone. He gave them citizenship. So now they're dealing with legal immigration, and it's costing their economy. Their jobs are a problem. Taxes are a problem there, and they're getting tariffed by President Trump. So, and Mark Carney has not been able to come to the table and make a deal. So a lot of Canadians are frustrated. As far as Mexico, I mean, he's still dealing with the drug problem down there.
But
and
the wages have not improved, John. That labor leader told me I thought maybe wages with the USMCA had improved, which would encourage those young people getting jobs down there not to hook up with the cartels, but it's not happening because wages are still being suppressed south of the border.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, there's a lot of corruption in Mexico, and you've got the cartels that arguably are more powerful than the government itself. So you've got the Claudia Sheinbaum who's trying to make, agreements with President Trump, and she's trying to play ball with them. But again, at the end of the day, the cartels control Mexico, and I think President Trump knows that. So until there's a change on that front, you're not going to see a difference there.
My friend, Sunday Report every Sunday, 10 a.m. to noon on Newsmax, hosted by John Glasgow. John, good luck.
Thank you, my man.
Thanks so much for coming on, my friend. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Sorry, it's a little bit late. I apologize.
It's okay. Better late than never, my friend. Thank you.
All right. See you later, Jake.
All right. You're watching Your News Talk America. Back here in DS2, behind the golden microphone with yours truly, Jake Smith, in just a moment.
Here's a look at your Delmarva forecast. Mainly clear this afternoon with a chance for storms. Highs level off around 96. Winds out of the west, 8 to 15 miles per hour. Cloudy tonight, chance of thunderstorms. Lows level off around 71. High of 90 tomorrow. Upper 80s Sunday with a chance for storms. Low 80s, mainly cloudy Monday. I'm meteorologist Paul Trombley from the Talk of Delmarva Weather Center, inland. Currently, it's 93 degrees.
Salute the troops with 92.7 and 98.5 WGMD. Get the WGMD app online today.
This 11 a.m. Wellness Minute is locally brought to you by Pam Health Rehabilitation Hospitals. A fall, a fracture, a joint replacement. Orthopedic injuries can change your life in a moment, but with the right recovery plan, they don't have to define it. After surgery or trauma, healing doesn't stop at the hospital door. That's where acute rehabilitation steps in, helping you regain strength, mobility, and independence. At acute rehab, patients receive intensive therapy at least 3 hours a day, guided by an expert team of physical therapists, occupational therapists, nurses, and physicians who specialize in rehab medicine. Whether you're recovering from a hip fracture, knee replacement, or spinal surgery, acute rehab is designed to get you moving safely sooner. Orthopedic recovery takes more than time. It takes the right team. Ask your doctor if acute rehab is the next step for you or a loved one, and remember, you have the right to choose the level of care that's right for you. Visit pamhealth.com today.
One of the great things this time of year on Delmarva are the farmers markets. Hi, it's Mike Bradley on behalf of the Office of Worcester County Tourism with a few updates on farmers markets around the county. In Snow Hill, every Thursday until October at a new location, Sturgis Park Pavilion at 300 River Street, and new time between 2 and 7 p.m. The Berlin Farmers Market every Sunday through October from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. featuring more than 50 vendors offering fresh produce, baked goods, and more. Visit marylandscoast.org.
Views and opinions expressed are those of the hosts, callers, and guests, and not necessarily the staff, management, ownership, advertisers, or sponsors of WGMD. Scott Lennox from FishinOC.com joins Mike Bradley Friday mornings at 8:20 right now during the height of the season to talk all things fishing. 92.7 and 98.5 WGMD. Talking fishing on Delmarva. The Talk of Delmarva Radio Flea Market, Saturday morning at 10 on the Talk of Delmarva.
Broadcasting from the Meineke Car Care Center studio. It's your Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
Back in DS2, your News Talk America, your anchorman, Jake Smith. My friends, I don't know what to tell you about Dr. Jeremy Liff, the board-certified neurologist who's supposed to be with us. The only thing I can tell you is he's a no-show. And I reached out to the person who booked him, and no response from either. So we're going to move ahead. Now, let me get to something Big Cat posted in the Dial Lounge. I agree, Jake, but sometime you just got to cut bait and get the troops home. Losing power to the Dems in 26 to 28 is worse than finding the nuclear dust. Trump knows that. Forever wars in the Middle East don't work. Declare victory and move on. Even if we had clear victory, the Dems and the media will spin it. It's a no-win situation if we stay in Iran. All right, well, Big Cat, I understand. We're not in Iran. I mean, right now what we're trying to do is choke the regime. And the regime has been choked. Unfortunately, they're still breathing. And unfortunately, this is where we are right now. Now, I've referenced a couple of times today my monologue from the first hour, which is our traditional terrestrial radio hour, and we stream video second and third hours of the broadcast, as you know. But for those of you who missed my monologue today, and listen, I'm a big Trump supporter. I love President Trump. But I am not going to miss an opportunity to point out where I think he has made mistakes. And I think that 8 weeks ago, when he pulled the plug on Operation Epic Fury and thought that he had the Iranians convinced to come to the table, my friends, we had the momentum to crush the regime 8 weeks ago. And we let them survive. They continue to survive today. So let me read this monologue a second time this morning. I wouldn't ordinarily do this, but I know some of you weren't listening earlier. You missed it, so here it is. Here we go again. A final agreement with Iran is close, and the signing could come as early as this weekend. Where have we heard that before? Let's discuss the latest promise from President Trump that a deal is imminent on the monologue. The monologue is entitled, A Deal with the Devil. Every time I hear how close we are to ending the war with Iran via a negotiated settlement, I roll my eyes. I'm sorry, Mr. President. I know how much you want to make a deal, but this appears to be, to me anyway, a deal with the devil. If it were any other country, I would agree that peace agreements are always preferred to sacrificing innocent lives lost from an actual war. Whenever we sign agreements with our enemies always cheat. Do you notice that? Whether it's the Soviet Union, North Korea, North Vietnam, Communist China, or Iran, they all cheat when they sign peace deals with the United States. To expect otherwise, Mr. President, would be foolish. If by chance some type of agreement is signed, if ever, it is clear to me that our enemy in Tehran really wants money. That's what this is all about, because they're broke. They want us to unfreeze billions in frozen Iranian assets so they can rebuild their terror networks and rebuild Hezbollah. Why do I say that? Well, that's how this regime can regain power. There is little doubt that unfreezing what remains of Iranian assets will enable them to rebuild their worldwide terrorist infrastructure, while China, Russia, and North Korea will rebuild Iran's domestic infrastructure. That's how I see the future from any peace deal with the devil, my friends. There is another enemy which we have faced at the outset of this war, and it's not talked about very much. That enemy is the impatience of the American people, also known as selfishness. President Trump has all but eliminated Iran's threats to use nuclear weapons to enable them to kill every Christian and Jew on planet Earth, including those here in the United States. What I see and hear most from Americans is annoyance of what this war effort is costing them. Yes, gasoline is higher, but nowhere near what it is in Europe. With my own eyes, I saw prices in several EU countries when I was on vacation with Nancy 2 weeks ago. Gasoline is well over $8 a gallon over there. If Americans reacted back in 1941 to food and gasoline rationing with the impatience that Americans have today, we would have lost the Second World War, my friends. Could we not make a sacrifice, a small sacrifice to ensure our children's and grandchildren's future? At the end of the day, this deal, if it is signed at all, will be a deal with the devil. I am sure John Kerry will be helping the regime find ways around compliance, ways to cheat after it's signed. Why do I say that? Because that is what Swiftboat Kerry does. For those of you angry because the war in Iran is not MAGA, it's not America first, let me say this. How can you make America great again if America is nuked? And that is the monologue. What say you? Big Cat says, regime change is good in theory, but it never works. Well, that's true. But regime change, if it came from the Iranian people, who have fallen silent, that is unfortunately the worst part of this, Big Cat, is we counted on the Iranian people to do their part. 42,000 at last estimates have been killed or murdered by the regime. And what we have now is the Iranian people are basically spectators to what the United States is doing. Big Cat says, wow, I guess you like the monologue then, Big Cat. Engineer Bob says the Iran war could have ended a month ago if Trump had leveled enough non-civilian portions of Iran. Well, he talked about that. Whether he is willing to do that or not, I don't know. Bob says, Bob says, that is, John F. Kerry should be in jail now for aiding and abetting multiple enemies of the United States. Well, he's done that for the most part with Iran and these backdoor deals with Iran. Even during the first Trump administration, Bob, Kerry was advising the Iranians on how to avoid the sanctions that President Trump had imposed during the first Trump administration. Want to take a break here on Your News Talk America to check the business news, and then we'll be back with author Thom Hartmann. Who killed the American dream? We're going to find out coming up next on Your News Talk America. Digital Interactive Friday continues in just a moment.
Here's the marine forecast from the Taco Del Marva Weather Center. For today, we'll see southwest winds around 5 to 10 knots, increasing to 10 to 15 knots by afternoon, with seas around 2 to 3 feet. Tides for Rehoboth Beach, low tide 11:34 a.m., high tide 6:11 p.m., low tide 12:38 a.m. Saturday. For Cambridge, low tide 8:50 a.m., high tide 1:52 p.m., low tide 8:09 p.m. The current water temperature is 68 degrees. I'm meteorologist Regina Cole.
Welcome to the Delmarva Peninsula, and thanks for listening to 92.7 and 98.5. The Talk of Delmarva.
This WGMD Fox Business Update is brought to you by Sussex Environmental Consultants. For a healthy home, call 302-947-1810.
I'm Elizabeth McDonald, and this is the Fox Business Report.
Consumer sentiment improved this month. The University of Michigan's mid-month survey picked up to a reading of 48.9, but it's still the second lowest reading on record. Those surveyed have tempered their expectations for inflation for the next year and 5 years. The SpaceX stock launches today on the NASDAQ. Elon Musk rang the opening bell from SpaceX headquarters and said he initially thought the space company would fail, but decided to continue with the business because it was doing things no other company was. Shell has decided to pause its $3 billion stock buyback because of requirements related to its deal with ARC Resources. Shell revealed plans back in April to buy Canadian energy company ARC. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Jenny Coselda. Invested in you.
Most
investments today feel like second jobs. Real estate, you're a landlord. Stocks, you're a day trader. Crypto, you're a full-time researcher. You've got a life to live. Your investment should help you live it. That's why more Americans are choosing gold. Noble Gold has helped thousands protect their future with real physical gold. Visit NobleGoldInvestments.com to get your free wealth protection kit. That's NobleGoldInvestments.com. Past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals, including gold, involves risks. Consult with your tax attorney or financial professional before making an investment decision.
Broadcasting from the Meineke Car Care Center studio. It's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
My friends, is the American dream dead? Some people believe it is, sadly. So, how did the American dream die? Who killed it? Well, let's talk to author Thom Hartmann, the author of the book, Who Killed the American Dream? Mr. Hartmann is a New York Times best-selling author, 4-time Project Censored award-winning author of more than 40 books. That's right, 40. He publishes a daily Substack newsletter about politics, the Hartmann Report. That's available at hartmannreport.com. He has more than 225,000 subscribers. Tom, it's so nice to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining us on Your News Talk America. Sadly, many of our young people today believe that the American dream is dead. Well, dead for them. Are they wrong or are they right?
Well, in 1980, with a single paycheck, 2/3 of Americans could buy a home, buy a car every 3 years, take a vacation, and put their kids through college. Today, only about 43% of Americans can do that, and it requires 2 paychecks. So there's been a big change in the last 45 years. This whole neoliberal thing that's been, frankly, embraced by both parties. But a lot of that tracks back to corporate power. And corporate power tracks back to a series of very corrupt Supreme Court decisions that have their foundation in one back in 1886. And that's the original crime that I discovered, and that that's at the essence of this book. It's written kind of like a murder mystery. Who did it?
Well, you talked about the Supreme Court fraud that killed the American dream revealed, but if I can for a moment, and I want to expand on that. You talked about the way things were in the 1980s, but between the 1980s and the 1990s, there were a tremendous number of corporate mergers. Companies got bigger and bigger and more powerful and more powerful. And do you think that had something to do with ending the American dream for many?
I think that had a lot to do with it. In 1983, Ronald Reagan ordered the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, the FEC, whichever it is, anyway, and the Department of Justice, these 3 agencies, to stop enforcing the Antitrust Act of 1890, the Sherman Antitrust Act, the Clayton Antitrust Act of 1927, and the Antitrust Act of 1956. And the result was that M&A mania, Michael Milken, these guys who called themselves the masters of the universe. And the result of that is that the average American family now pays between $4,000 and $5,000 a year more for the basic things of life than do average Canadian or European families, where those being countries where antitrust laws are still enforced. And again, this tracks back to that 1886 non-decision. The Supreme Court, a bunch of railroads came to the Supreme Court in 1886 and said, make us persons under the 14th Amendment so we can claim constitutional rights, particularly under the Bill of Rights and the 14th Amendment, equal protection under the law. The Southern Pacific Railroad was being charged different tax rates in Santa Clara and Santa Ana County on their property taxes, and they said that's unequal protection, and we're entitled to that because we're a person. And of course, back in 1819, the Supreme Court has said, yes, you're an artificial person, so you can sign contracts, pay taxes, be sued, or sue others, but you're not a human. But in 1886, they said, no, we should have the rights of humans. We should have the First Amendment right of free speech. We should have the Fourth Amendment right of privacy. We should have the Fifth Amendment right against takings and against self-incrimination. And the court struck that down in 1886. They said, no way, we're not even going to go there. But the clerk of the court, conspiring, whose name was John Chandler Bancroft Davis, he was a very wealthy man. He was the son of the then governor of Massachusetts. And one of the members of the court, a fellow by the name of Stephen J. Field, who was from California, who was also on the Ninth Circuit, were both in the pocket of the big railroad guys, particularly Leland Stanford. And they and Bancroft Davis wrote in a head note, which has no legal standing whatsoever. It's just a comment for law students. They wrote in the head note of the case that the Chief Justice had in fact said that corporations are persons, under the provisions of the 14th Amendment. That then got quoted in 1978 in a case called Bellotti that was written by Lewis Powell, saying corporations are persons and therefore they can participate in elections. That overturned the 1907 Tillman Act that Republican President Teddy Roosevelt had put into place that literally outlawed any federal participation in any federal election. It overturned that, and that set the stage for Citizens United when the court really blew the doors open. And now not just corporations in America can participate, but as John Paul Stevens said in his dissent, under this ruling, Tokyo Rose would have the same rights as an American citizen to participate in elections. And in fact, we've got, foreign-based organizations like AIPAC that are throwing money into elections on both sides, frankly, for the interests of a foreign country. And it's just crazy. And all of this collectively, all of this corporate power is, I think, at the core of this destruction of the American dream that you and I are both so concerned about.
What kind of governance, then, do you think we have today? Because I feel that Congress is completely broken.
Yeah.
It doesn't function as the founders intended. What kind of governance do we have today, then, Tom?
Well, it's called an oligarchy, and this is a real form of government. Oligarchy is where basically a government has been captured by wealthy interests. And the danger of oligarchy is that it's almost always a transitional form of government. Usually when governments become oligarchies, as Russia did, for example, in the late 1990s, when the oligarchs basically took over under Yeltsin. When governments become oligarchs, the people tend to rebel. They did in Ukraine. They've done it in a number of countries. There's examples going all the way back to the French Revolution. And when the people rebel, the oligarchs and their puppet politicians have two choices. They can do what America has done twice, what we did after the Civil War and what we did after the Great Depression, and say, okay, we're going to back away from oligarchy. We will put into place laws like, the Sherman Antitrust Act. We will put into place laws like the Clayton, or the Tillman Act and the outlawing corporate. In other words, we'll dial back the oligarchy, which we're all hoping will happen. Or they can do what Putin did when he came into power in the early 2000s. They can crush the protests with an iron, basically an iron fist, or as Grover Cleveland called it, the iron heel. Back in 1888, right after this head note was published, he said, this was the President of the United States. In his address to his annual State of the Union address, he said, because of trusts and combinations, which is what we call monopolies today, we see corporations, which should be the carefully measured servants of the people, rising up and crushing the average citizen with an iron heel. And that led to that progressive, if you want to call it that. It was Teddy Roosevelt and William Howard Taft, the Republican presidents. That led to that backlash that brought those corporations under control. And, I think we're facing a similar moment right now, Jake.
Thom Hartmann is joining us, the author of the book, Who Killed the American Dream? Tom, you say in the book, the warning signs of democracy's demise have been there for decades. So then what does history reveal about this erosion, and is it possible to rebuild trust between a democratic republic and the American people? What do you think?
Well, I think this is the big challenge. When Donald Trump was running for president in 2016 and Bernie Sanders was running for president in 2016, I was living in Washington, D.C. in a little marina there. That was probably, a third of the people living there were military, mostly Navy and Coast Guard. And it was so funny because literally everybody, all the people I knew who were in the military were either going to vote for Bernie or for Donald Trump, because both of these guys were saying, we're going to blow up the system. The system has become corrupted. Reagan sold out to the big corporations. Bill Clinton sold out to the big corporations. Barack Obama turned our healthcare system over to the big corporations. We've had enough. We want real change. And, sadly, we haven't seen that real change either under Trump or under Biden. And I think that desire for real change is still very real, and it's popping up in all kinds of strange ways. You hear people like Marjorie Taylor Greene talking about this, and people like Ro Khanna talking about this, right across the board. Which makes me think that there's this theory of American history that we kind of go in these 80-year cycles that start out with an economic crisis and often a war, and then lead to a big change. The 1776, the American Revolution. Literally 80 years later, we had the great crash of 1856 and the American Civil War. 80 years after that, we had the crash of 1929 and the World War II, and we're now 80 years past the end of World War II. And if that theory that historians Strauss and Howe laid out in their book, The Fourth Turning, if that theory has any cogency, if it's true, I think we're on the verge of a major political change in this country. And I don't think you could call it liberal or conservative or progressive or even reactionary. I think this is, frankly, the American tradition of the people saying, wait a minute, we created this country for us, taxation with representation. And we want our damn country back.
You say in your book that there is some type of political breakdown coming in this country. I mean, it's happening already, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. In both parties. They're both going through these kind of convulsions. And over the short term, it's tough, and it's a tough thing for everybody. And people are economically suffering and all those other things. I think over the long term, if we go the way that we did in the 1930s, the way that we did in the 1870s, the way that we did in the 1780s, then America, for our children and grandchildren, will be a much better place. If, on the other hand, we go the direction that Putin took Russia, or Orban took Hungary, or Erdogan took Turkey, and respond to that populist demand for a return to the people actually running the country rather than the oligarchs, then we're going to be in for a rough ride for a while. So I think that's the big issue that's facing all of us, of both parties and of all political persuasions.
Final question, Tom. The midterms are coming up, and obviously both parties are claiming they want either to keep power or they want to seize power. That's the way I hear it.
Yeah.
What do you see with this election cycle coming up, and do you see it as perhaps the Fort Sumter moment for what is coming in this country?
I think that's probably a good way to describe it, Jake. I don't see this so much as left versus right. I'm not even sure those labels have much meaning anymore. I think it's more like top versus bottom. It's the oligarchs versus the rest of us. You've got 1/10 of America owns 38% of the wealth in this country. The bottom half of us own 3% of the wealth in this country. The middle class that used to be 2/3 of us is 43% of us, and it requires 2 jobs instead of 1. And even at that, 500,000 Americans get wiped out just because somebody got sick every year. So it is a time, and I think everybody gets it. Things are screwed up, whether you want to call it the deep state or you want to call it the, whatever. We need a change, and I think at the core of that change that we need is this issue that I write about in my book, which is corporate power in America. We've got too many billionaires and the corporations that made them billionaires who have way too much control over both parties and frankly over the entire system right now.
Right.
And it's got to change.
I can't wait to get a copy of your book, Who Killed the American Dream? Thom Hartmann is the author, Hartmann. Again, my friends, the book, Who Killed the American Dream? Tom, thanks so much for coming on with us today. Fascinating discussion. I'd like to have you back in the
Thanks
very near
for the
future
invitation,
to talk
Jake.
more. Thank you.
It's great to meet you.
Thank you. You're watching Your News Talk America Digital Interactive Friday. Salute the Troops comes up in just a little while. Stay with us.
Here's a forecast. Highs around 96 this afternoon under mainly clear skies with a chance for storms. Winds out of the west, 8 to 15 miles per hour. Cloudy tonight, chance for storms, 71. 90 tomorrow, mainly sunny. High of 90 Sunday with a chance of thunderstorms. 82, more clouds and sun Monday. I'm meteorologist Paul Trombley from the Talk of Delmarva Weather Center along the coast. Right now, it's 85 degrees.
Celebrating over 40 years. 92.7 and 98.5. The Talk of Delmarva. NJ Powell, afternoons on WGMD.
You looked at your trees lately? Really looked at them? Complete Tree Care has a 76-foot lawn-friendly lift and specializes removing hazardous trees, dead wood, or removing that limb that has been worrying you. Best of all, our estimates are free. That's right, free. Have our trained sales specialists give you a written proposal. So make sure you visit us on the web at CompleteTreeCare.us. Call Complete Tree Care 302-947-2273, 302-947-2273.
Don't miss the Summer Living Expo at Cape Henlopen Open High, Saturday and Sunday, June 13th and 14th. Admission is free, and 70 exhibitors will present their home, health, and wellness products and services Saturday 9 to 3 and Sunday 10 to 2. BB will offer free healthcare screenings on Saturday. There's ample free parking at Cape High and free gifts and prizes from many of the exhibitors. For valuable information regarding home, health, and wellness products and services, don't miss the free Summer Living Expo Saturday and Sunday, June 13th and 14th at Cape High.
Hi, I'm Clark, principal at Giuliani Associates. Before you build, you design. And design determines cost, efficiency, and longevity. A well-designed facility reduces friction and supports growth. Poorly designed one becomes an ongoing expense. If you're planning a restaurant, office, public facility in Delmarva, start with the right plan. Giuliani Associates. Architecture is an investment. Design at betterdelmarva.com. Design at betterdelmarva.com.
The need for blood is constant, but sometimes that need becomes critical. The Blood Bank of Delmarva needs your help, and first-time donors are encouraged to help Delaware and the Eastern Shore of Maryland residents who need it most. To schedule your appointment, call 1-888-8-BLOOD-8 or visit delmarvablood.org. Your one blood donation can help save multiple lives. For more information, go to the Community Outreach under the Extras tab at thetalkofdelmarva.com.
To honor those men and women who have defended freedom whenever and wherever it was threatened, the Talk of Delmarva presents Salute the Troops.
During Operation Freedom Sentinel in Afghanistan at the age of 24. Nance hailed from Chicago. He was assigned to Company B, 1st Battalion, 505th Parachute Infantry Regiment, 3rd Brigade Combat Team, 82nd Airborne Division out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina. The soldier was killed by small arms fire in a reported insider attack in Afghanistan. Nance joined the Army in January 2017. He completed basic training, advanced individual training, and airborne school at Fort Benning, Georgia before being assigned to the 505th PIR. He was an automatic rifleman. His awards and decorations included the Purple Heart, the Bronze Star Medal, the Army Service Ribbon, the Afghanistan Campaign Medal, the Global War on Terror Service Medal, the Combat Infantryman Badge, and the Basic Parachutist Badge. Salute the Troops honors the ultimate sacrifice in Afghanistan of United States Army Specialist Michael Isaiah Nance. If not for the soldiers' commitment to serve and defend freedom and liberty in Afghanistan, this nation could not, this nation would never have remained free. May this grateful nation never forget the name, Michael Isaiah Nance. Rest in peace, sir. For Salute the Troops, I'm Jake Smith.
Times, the wheelchair
cares our veterans and first responders receive from their healthcare providers are subpar at best. Some are falling apart with a years-long waiting list for a new one. This lag causes a tremendous amount of stress for our heroes and creates a burden for their caregivers. Isolation leads to depression. We build what they need to get outdoors, hunting, fishing, or playing sports. Join the mission at wheelchairsforwarriors.org.
Broadcasting from the Mighty King Car Care Center studio. It's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
Now I punched myself up. Your News Talk America Digital Interactive Friday continues. Your anchorman, Jake Smith, with you until noon Eastern Time. My friends, I just took a look at a headline from the Epoch Times. The Department of Justice in California, the Central District of California, First Assistant U.S. Attorney Bill Asali, I guess that's how you pronounce his name. Bill, by the way, is one of the Trump nominees for U.S. attorney who never even had their opportunity to hear their case heard before the U.S. Senate, so he's not confirmed, so he's called First Assistant U.S. Attorney. However, he's a good guy, but he's announced that the DOJ is investigating election integrity or election fraud in California, the People's Republic. Listen to this. Ahead of the 2026 midterms, investigations into suspected election fraud in California are underway, said Bill Asali, First Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Central District of California. And I do not expect those will result in charges. I do expect those will result in charges, Asali told the Epoch Times in an interview back on June 9th. He did not elaborate, as Justice Department regulations prohibit discussing details on open cases. We are going to follow the evidence wherever it goes, Asali said. Here is what I have read with respect to California, and also talked to friends in California, that, as you know, homeless encampments in California, especially in Southern California, are pretty common. I mean, they're almost as if they are established neighborhoods at this point. But the situation, as we understand it, is that there were, I guess you could call them fraudsters, election fraudsters, were paying people on Skid Row cash to fill out mail-in ballots in California. So basically, they were being paid to vote. Now in California, as you know, and I said it yesterday, kiddingly, but it's true, sadly true, that if you had a Jack LaLanne membership card in a health club, like a Jack LaLanne or any health club, that membership card is sufficient proof that you can vote in California elections. That is sufficient ID in California to vote. Now, it's all nonsense. We know that. This is what the Demcoms want. This is why California has become a solid blue state, a communist blue state. Sadly, it's not going to change. And I was listening to one talk show yesterday, and they had an election pollster on talking about California, and his analysis is this: the Republicans have left California. They're gone. They've moved to other states. They moved to Arizona. They moved to Idaho. They moved to Texas. The great Republican base, and it's hard to deny that California back in the 1960s, 70s, 80s was a solid Republican state. But those Republicans are gone. They've left. And there's just not enough Republican voters in California, or New York for that matter, to vote for Republican candidates. Yes, I realize, that Steve Hilton wants to change things. He has good intentions, but there's just not enough Republican voters to put him over the top. And that's what that polling expert said yesterday on this talk show that I was listening to when I was driving. So if you had hoped that things would change in California, yeah, of course, are some people going to be prosecuted for election fraud? Probably. Will they go to court? Will they go to jail for it? Who knows? But the fact is, my friends, that there's been a great change in America in states, and who's in states? Florida right now, Texas, Idaho. They're becoming more solidly Republican states because people have left. They've been driven out of places like New York. I was driven out of New York. Perhaps you were as well. People have been driven out of California. There's just not enough Republicans to turn those states anymore. And that's the reality. And that's why he said, sadly, Steve Hilton has little to no chance of being elected governor of California. I want you to remember, you have a voice. Make sure your voice is heard loud and clear. Millie, Triel, you're home. Have a great weekend. Be back at it again from DS2 Monday morning, 6 minutes past 9.
Heritage Talk Station, 92.7 WGMD Rehoboth Beach and 98.5 WUSX Seaford.